All right, let's go. Welcome to another episode of eCom Raw Reality. Full on summer right now, and typically we discuss all things e-commerce, Shopify, Meta ads, Google ads, email. But right now, I do want us to focus more so on strategy. And what I want to focus on today is actually the fact that you should be selling expensive shit online, and there are a couple of reasons why, but it just makes life easier, right? It's just like with anything else. You can pick the hard route or the easier route, and it's just like with working hard, but working hard on the wrong things, right? Because, for example, do you think the people who are earning $1 million a month, right, or 100K a month, right, 10K a month, do you think they necessarily work much harder than someone earning 1,000 a month, right? Especially in Asia or in Europe, it's not the case. And it's the same with e-commerce. When you try to sell something that's low value, typically lower quality, and to an audience that just has less disposable income, you're just making your life harder, right? And that isn't to say that, for example, I work with e-commerce brands that just sell like premium or luxury things, right? It's not the case. But there is definitely a range, meaning that if you sell a t-shirt, you don't want to be the guy or the gal who sells it for $10, because how much are you actually profiting? $5? You would need a customer acquisition cost of $5, which is almost impossible, especially at scale, right? So that is why you also need the unit of economics there. You need to sell something that's maybe $50, then you profit 40, then you also have to ship it. You also have to market it. You also have to pay someone, yourself, your customer service, your staff, someone, right? And all of these costs add up over time. So basically, by selling especially expensive shit, I just mean that you need to sell something that at least is, let's say in the US market, around $50, or ideally in the higher range, closer to 100. Because imagine if you sell something that's $100 and someone sells something that's $50, right? It could be almost the same thing, but because you have more income with every sale, you will have more that you can spend on marketing, on team, on so many other things. And that's why I've definitely noticed that there's a sweet spot when it comes to the range of prices. So for example, whenever I've worked with a brand that has an AOV of 100 or 100 plus, I've always had an easier life. For example, one of my email clients that has an AOV of around 120, I would say, they're selling supplements, and life is so easy there. I mean, it's basically just designing some emails and it's going to print, you know, nothing special. Also because email, I would say, is in most cases easier. Email is definitely easier than paid, and that is just something that's real overall. Just like with AOV, paid is usually more difficult because you depend on CPMs, you depend on seasonality, you depend on so many other factors, right? So this is where you need to look at the entire market and see where you want to be, right? Do you want to be the one selling cheap stuff and then having a hard time with CPMs, with CAC, with CPC, right? Because right now, actually, I do have another client on the paid ad side, which wanted us to actually spend less on marketing because we're having so many sales, and they might have a stock issue. So as you can see, it always depends. And guess what? That client has around, or their partner, if you want to think about it, you know, because I always think that all brands that I work with are like collaborators, partners, you know. Rather than calling myself an agency, I would rather call it, I would say, a growth partnership, because that's the actual goal, right? It's to help most brands grow, not necessarily like, yeah, just push some buttons on paid media, you know, and hope for the best, because that doesn't help them as much. And if you want to get paid more, right, you also have to bring more value. And yeah, just being like a media buyer is not enough. Just being like a designer is not enough. Just bringing cheap value items to the market is not enough. And coming back to why you should sell to, I mean, the premise of this video was why to sell more expensive stuff, right? But at the same time, think about it. When you sell something that's more expensive, you actually sell to a different type of person, right? You sell to a person that doesn't think as much about price as much as they think about quality, right? For example, even some of my family members, they overspend on brands and on, let's say, clothes, because they believe that if it's more expensive, it's higher quality. And sometimes it could be, but sometimes it's not, right? So sometimes you're overpaying for something, which is fine, because think about it. Why do many people buy, let's say, a yoga mat? Why do they buy a yoga mat for, I don't know, $100, than the cheap one from Amazon for $15, right? Or something like that. That's almost a 5x, a 7x increase in price, but you're actually paying for the quality. Let's say it's a slightly higher quality, but also for the branding, the marketing, and how it makes you feel, right? So that's why even myself, when I make all my purchases, they are not just logical, right? For example, look around you and look at cars, right? They are all different colors, different brands. And why is that? Well, because everyone has a slightly different way of looking at things. Someone prefers reliability, someone prefers, if I look at the colors, most of them are, I would say, whiter. To some extent, I see a gray one, I see a white one, another gray one, right? So you do see patterns over time, just like with AOV. And with AOV, for example, if you sell to people who have more money, you'll just have a higher AOV. You have a higher returning customer rate as well, which is also important, because think about it. Do you want someone to buy from you just once, or do you want them to buy again and again and again? It's just like with relationships. Why do you enjoy those that are, let's say, deeper in most cases, and why do you like your older friends more sometimes, right? It's because of the time that you invested with them, right? So it's the same in e-commerce. Whenever you have the opportunity to create, let's say, a higher lifetime value, if we were to be technical, but also a long-time customer, why wouldn't you do it, right? You make more money, they are more invested in your brand, they fund more, I would say they fund more of your business so that you can also develop new products, right? So there are so many things if you think about it. And that's why I'm making these videos, just to share some of the things that I'm seeing on my end. And then all of these things just add up, right? That's why it's actually harder to go from, let's say, 1 to 0, from having a 0 income, 0 clients, to like the first one. It's actually harder than going from like 1 to 5 sometimes, right? And even in my case, I had one client in my agency for so long, and then in just a few months, another 4 or 5 just signed like that, you know? And that's because over time you just add things, right? Add more conversations, even think about it with your product in eCom. The more you sell, the more you have the opportunity basically to get more user-generated content. The more time will pass by, which gives you more opportunity to post on social media. More people will find out about you. So There are all of these things that just add up. It's small, but it's basically compound interest, just like with investing. If you get 10% per year for 40 years, that money will double, I would say, every 7 years or so. So you will get, yeah, a 5x, 6x, or even more the more you wait. But for now, I would say that's it. As much as possible, try to increase your AOV, try to sell to people who have more income, because it just makes your life easier. So overall, I would say those are the main things that I want to focus on for today. If this helped you in any way, leave a like, leave a comment. Any kind of engagement is helpful. And until next time, as always, peace out.